I felt as if I really had a compulsion to go and see for myself the result of the atrocities that were reported in the press. The police going into that apartment and shooting it up, killing the leaders of the Black Panther Party in their bed. The Panthers had reached out to what they thought were groups of people of goodwill. So I gathered a group of people from the Winnetka Human Relations Committee, which I was leader of at that point. A bunch of us went down, went through in shock at what we saw. There was still blood spattered. There were bullet holes all over the door going in. One of the things that really sticks in my memory is there were posters, political posters along the wall going down the hall, and they had even ripped those posters off and threw them on the floor. One picture I remember most clearly of all, police officers carrying either Fred Hampton or Mark Clark on a gurney down the steps. The police officer at the top of the steps had this silly grin on his face. In addition to Fred Hampton and Mark Clark, Fred's significant other, his partner, the mother of his unborn child, was in bed with him. The police must have had informants give them the layout of the apartment and everything. At that point, we weren't savvy enough, at least I wasn't, and I don't think most people were, to be examining the door. The door that became so controversial because the police had said it was self-defense, a shootout they called it. A day or two later, and the door was examined and 99 bullets went into the door and one came out. We always perceive Citizens Alert as a ministry of justice, not only a ministry of justice, but a kind of a ministry of presence to the powerless or the poor or the people who have less influence and are more apt to be victimized by the system. But whether it's the police, whether it's criminal justice, the courts, whatever, we always kind of relied on a church constituency to back us up. So Citizens Alert began in 1967, and that was partially as a result of racial minorities, particularly being targeted by the police for brutality.
So we always say in the Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary.
The call we got from the Black Panther headquarters when the police went through there and did such devastation and murdered the two Black Panther leaders was a wake-up call to a lot of other people, both city and suburban residents, who were saying this can't happen, we can't allow this to happen. We, as white suburbanites, went home and I suppose talked to our family and people in the church and the community. A few weeks later, the Winnetka Human Relations Committee had a letter inviting us to a meeting at DePaul University. And this was a letter that was sent out widely to communities, churches, gangs, everybody. People were there, were invited there to address the atrocities and the overkill of the police department, but also other phases of the criminal justice system that needed attention. As a result of those meetings at DePaul, it was the beginning of a new organization called the Alliance to End Repression. Task forces were formed to work on various issues involved in criminal justice that needed public attention. I wanted to sign up for all of them, but I did sign up for the police task force, partially because of that trauma of having seen what the police had done at Panther headquarters. And it was decided that we should have a fundraiser for the Alliance. But at the end of that meeting, a few people came up to the coordinator of the Alliance, John Hill, and said, we have a 501c3 to work on police issues. And we formed a group a few years ago called Citizens Alert. And if we hear about some police atrocity, we'll go to jail or go to talk to the victim and try to offer help. So they offered to join forces with the Police Task Force of the Alliance, which was wonderful. Citizens Alert had been formed and incorporated actually in 1967 by 5 white men to try to improve relations between the police and the community, particularly the black community. As a result of this merger between Citizens Alert and the Police Task Force, a lot of organized activity that hadn't happened before began. We discovered there was a Chicago Police Board and began to monitor that. We organized people to go to the meetings of the police board and raise their issues from the community standpoint. We actually, both the Democratic Convention and the Panther Raid had been catalysts for this activity to begin. Well, in '68, of course, that summer we had the overreaction of the Chicago police during the Democratic Convention. And race wasn't a big factor in that, as I recall. I mean, anyone providing any semblance of dissent or disrespect or not following the immediate commands of the police were endangered and beaten, whatever. As a result of the convention, there was great community distrust of the police across the board.
The issue of police brutality has been changed in Chicago only when citizen organizations get emboldened and make a major protest, and usually involving minority groups, particularly African Americans, but more and more Latinos. Citizens Alert has been the citizens watchdog organization ever since the assassination of the Black Panthers. They have worked with the police board. They have worked with every coalition that has tried to bring change. They have been the one steady component over the 40 years.
One of the proudest accomplishments of Citizens Alert and the Alliance to End Repression was replacing the old corrupt Cook County Coroner's Office with that of a professional medical examiner. This was an initiative of the Alliance in which we involved community organizations across the county. The old Cook County Coroner's Office really didn't require anything other than you be a favored Democratic politician. So there was a coroner's jury made up of retired Cook County employees who supplemented their pension by a $2 or $3 daily fee for coming in and rubber stamping the decision of the Chicago Police Department that police killings that were being considered were justified. And that was just a routine thing. And some of them, they thought it was their civic duty. And I remember one old gentleman who was deaf, who didn't know from what they were saying, but when it came time for the vote, his friend would poke him in the arm and he'd say, yes, yes, justified, yes, yes. I mean, it was a complete farce.
The machine system has existed in Chicago since 1871, when Michael Cassius MacDonald introduced the crooks, the owners of saloons, the brothel house owners, to the politicians and showed them their mutual self-interest. They would get their patrons to go vote, and if they voted 5 or 6 times in the election, they would get a free lunch and beer. That was the beginning of machine politics in Chicago, and we began with that history. We've had corruption as long as we've had machine politics.
It was a whitewash, a real whitewash, the coroner's jury for police killings. And that was the angle that Citizens Alert came to try to educate people about, that police were being whitewashed, and their decision to shoot someone to kill was just approved routinely by this coroner's jury. So this campaign took 3 or 4 years, if I remember correctly, and lots of people from forensic groups, from doctors, from religious organizations, from anyone we could recruit became involved, and we tried to educate them on the issue. In 1973, there was a referendum that passed, and the new medical examiner system was established, including required advanced training of forensic pathologists, just a whole new ball game. As a result of Citizens Alert and the Alliance role in getting the medical examiner system established, we had a very healthy relationship with the medical examiner who was appointed. One of the things that we had requested, kind of building on that relationship, was that we be notified of deaths in custody, which included jail hangings, a mysterious death in the middle of the night in the jail, police killings. They were more than willing to cooperate. The people at the medical examiner's office, Dr. Stein, ordered that we be notified of every death in custody, which was unheard of. As a result of that notification, we could offer support to the family of the person who'd been killed or who died in custody. Take them to deal with the doctor who'd done the autopsy, and we could make legal referrals if that seemed the appropriate thing, and sometimes just help the family bring closure to what had happened.
I met the good people from Citizens Alert around 1978, 1979. I was a resident in the famous Chicago Public Housing Project, Cabrini Green. A young man named Glenn Jones had been shot. At that time, the Housing Authority hired private police officers to do security. And so this young fellow named Glenn snatched a purse around Chicago Avenue, and they caught up with him, the security forces. And they handcuffed him and made him kneel on the ground and shot him in the back of the head in like 3 in the afternoon. some of the leaders in the community was in an uproar. And the community leaders was trying to at least have the security officer fired or removed from the premise, and also press charges because there was a number of witnesses who saw what happened.
Assassins! 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 Assassins!
And the police department and the state's attorneys and all the other powers that be kind of just dismissed it as, it wasn't a big deal. And so somebody heard about Citizens Alert, and the community leaders invited them over to tell them what happened. But I just went to the meeting to see what was gonna happen because I knew Glenn and I knew his family. So I saw about a 5'2" white lady coming to this project that's always in the news about being the toughest, housing project in the country, pretty much. And, just grabbed my attention. The way she carried, Mary Powers I'm speaking of, the way she carried herself and 2 or 3 people who came with her just impressed me so, for one, that they was concerned enough to, come and listen to our plight. To listen to about a poor black kid who got shot for snatching a purse. The community leaders created, and Citizens Alert created, what was known as the Cabrini Green Citizens Alert Committee. From that one case, what happened was the security officer did get fired from the pressure that the community kept putting on the politicians with the help of Citizens Alert organizing. And they did get an indictment for manslaughter, even though the officer was acquitted. But just moving the ball that far, something that the community never saw done in that type of organizing way. And so from the Cabrini Green Citizens Alert Committee, I became involved heavily in that, and we would have maybe quarterly meetings with police commanders in the 18th district, and would make suggestions about how they could police the community better. And I served as a board member and a volunteer for about 3 or 4 years. Besides doing board duties, I would volunteer to go interview witnesses, talk to families whose child been shot by police or someone who accused the police of brutality. So to a whole lot of people, it was just their last resort to get their story told and documented. It's a small element in the community that keep up a lot of negative activity and violence. And on the other hand, it's a small element within the police department that keeps up, a lot of violence and misconduct. who do I trust more? Can I tell a police officer my story without me catching a hassle? Or do I put up with the neighborhood thugs who, do whatever they do? I think it's still a big mistrust with the police department. The community is scared in the sense that a lot of times when you call the police and they come to your house, it's more problems than resolve. So people are skeptical about involving police officers. A lot of stories, but it was one mother. This was relatively recent. The Green family. Her son had been shot, but he died in the custody of the police department. And she knew he was involved in the gang. She knew he was dealing drugs and so forth. But when she called Citizens Alert, she said the only thing she was just trying to find out what happened to her son, and no one would talk to her. The police wouldn't talk to her. She was having a difficult time. And every time she talked to me, she would just break down in really emotional, in an emotional voice, and it sounded like she was crying. And every time she called, it kind of just tore at my heart a little bit, You hear the same theme over and over when you talk to parents. A lot of them say, I know my son is involved in negative things, but we don't want the police to beat our kids. We don't want the police to shoot our kids. If they're doing something wrong, take them to jail. Let them go before the judge and serve their time. Yes, I pray for her still today. She always, her voice, that the way she spoke on the phone and the way she cried out for help, that it's just forever kind of stuck in my mind, When people tell us that they realize that nothing legally may come out of this and what we call justice may not happen, the fact that they could come to our office or we can come to their home or to their church and listen to their story, it means a whole lot to them.
I always used to say, I'm trying to make a better world for you kids. I'm not sure I ever succeeded, but that's another story. But that was part of the, when people, later on when they'd say, why do I have to be in a pickup line? Or why do I have to pass out flyers? It was always my response. It's to make a better world.